I'm Amelia. I'm 20 years old, an accounting student, and I spend most nights under the fluorescent hum of the college library. Not studying, working. I shelve books and wipe down tables because my parents pay for my twin sister, Sophia, but they don't pay for me. The tuition deadline was looming, and after all my shifts, I was still short. My throat tightened, but I dialed home. I wasn't asking for a handout, just a loan, something I could pay back. My mother, Janet, answered. Her voice wasn't angry. It was calm, firm. Amelia, she said, we already paid for Sophia. She deserved it. But you didn't. She deserved it. But you didn't. The line went dead. I just stood there, gripping my cheap phone until my knuckles turned white. Everything went quiet. A door inside me didn't just close, it locked. That sentence didn't break me. It built me. That night I made a silent promise. I would make it. And I would prove, in a way they could never ever ignore, that I didn't need them for any of it. What do you do when the people who are supposed to support you the most become your first and biggest obstacle? We're twins, Sophia and I, born only 4 minutes apart. But from the very beginning, those 4 minutes felt like miles. It wasn't one big dramatic thing. It was quiet. It was in the details. If you looked at our family photos, you'd see it. We always had the same matching Christmas sweaters, the same neat smiles for the camera. But if you looked closely, you'd see my mother's hand. It always lingered on Sophia's shoulder. It was a possessive, proud gesture. In pictures, my hand was usually just at my side. My father's eyes, they softened when Sophia spoke. When I spoke, he just nodded, waiting for me to finish. We were a set, but we weren't a pair. When we were kids, maybe 7 or 8, I fell off my bike. I mean, I really fell. Pavement, gravel, blood running down my shin. I limped inside, crying, holding my knee. My mother, Janet, didn't even look up from the sink. She just reached back, pressed a dry paper napkin into my hand, and said, "You're strong, Amelia. You'll be fine. Go clean it up." I learned that strong was just another word for alone. 2 weeks later, Sophia tripped on the carpet, just a stumble. She let out a little sniffle, more surprised than hurt. Janet dropped a full bowl of batter on the counter, rushed over, and scooped her up. "Oh, my poor baby," she cooed, checking her for injuries that weren't there. "Are you okay? Does it hurt?" I just watched from the doorway, holding my own napkin to my own knee, a scab forming where she hadn't bothered to look. It never stopped. It just changed shape. On our 10th birthday, Sophia got a brand new 10-speed bike, bright purple, with white wall tires and streamers. I was so jealous I could barely breathe. Then, my dad wheeled mine out. It was her old one, her old pink bike, now covered in a hasty, sloppy coat of silver spray paint. The paint was still tacky in spots, and you could see the pink peeling underneath. A cover-up, so it looked new on the surface, but I knew. I always knew. In high school, the roles were set in stone. When Sophia forgot her homework, my mother wrote a note to the teacher, blaming a family emergency. When I forgot mine, I got a 45-minute lecture about responsibility, about how I was the one who had to be more careful, how I couldn't afford to make mistakes. I learned to stop competing. I learned to stop asking for things. I learned not to expect a bandage, literally or figuratively. I just studied. I kept my head down. I told myself that it didn't matter, that being self-sufficient, that was its own kind of pride. I was building my own armor. I just didn't realize how much I was going to need it. High school just poured concrete over the cracks that were already there. While Sophia was at the mall on weekends, trying on dresses she'd buy with my dad's credit card, I was at a local cafe. I wore an apron that always smelled like burnt coffee and sour milk. I'd wipe down sticky tables, scrub the espresso machine until my fingers ached, and hide my tips in an envelope taped inside my locker. Every dollar was a tiny piece of freedom. Sophia would come home, toss shopping bags on her bed, and complain about how tired she was. I'd come home smelling like old coffee grounds, my shoes sticking to the floor, and just nod. Then came senior year, the big fork in the road. We both applied to the same state college. We even applied for the same major, accounting. I chose it because it felt safe. It was a world of clean lines, of balanced ledgers, where everything had a place and the math had to add up. It was logical. It was stable. It was everything our family wasn't. Why did Sophia choose it? Maybe because it sounded impressive. Maybe just because I did. I never knew. The acceptance letters arrived on a Tuesday. I saw the mail truck pull away, and there they were, on the kitchen counter. 2 identical, thick envelopes. My heart was hammering. Sophia grabbed hers. I grabbed mine. We looked at each other, held our breath, and tore them open at the same time. We both screamed. We actually screamed and hugged. We jumped up and down in the kitchen, the letters clutched in our hands, laughing. For one brief, shining second, we weren't the golden child and the scapegoat. We were just twins. We were just 2 sisters who were going to college. It felt equal. I held on to that feeling all day. I went to my shift at the cafe and smiled at every customer. I thought, maybe this is it. Maybe this is where it changes. That night, I woke up thirsty. I came downstairs, patting softly on the carpet. The house was dark, but a thin line of light glowed from under the kitchen door. I heard my parents' voices, low and serious. I stopped on the bottom stair, my hand on the wooden railing. I heard my mother, Janet, say, "We'll pay Sophia's tuition in full. All 4 years." I waited. I expected my name to come next. I expected to hear, "And for Amelia, we can cover half, or we'll help her with books." There was just silence. It stretched on, thick and cold. Then, my mother spoke again. Her voice was practical. "Amelia's clever. She'll figure something out. She always does." My blood went cold. I heard my father, a sigh, and then his agreement. The words that sealed it, "You're right. She's independent. She doesn't need as much help." I stood there in the dark, my hand gripping the stair rail so hard my knuckles ached. My hand was shaking. They thought it was a compliment. She's independent. She's clever. She'll figure it out. It wasn't a compliment. It was a sentence. It was the price I paid for being the strong one. It was their permission slip to choose her, and their justification for abandoning me. It meant my success, my struggle, my exhaustion. It was all just a convenience for them. She always does. I didn't go into the kitchen for that glass of water. I turned around, and I walked, silently, back up the stairs. The acceptance letter was on my nightstand, looking proud in the moonlight. It felt like a joke. I didn't confront them. What could I even say? "Could you please love me as much as you love her?" No. I packed my bags quietly that August. As I zipped up the last suitcase full of my old clothes and the new textbooks I'd bought with my own cafe money, I promised myself one thing. I would never ask them for a single dollar, ever. I would work 3 jobs. I would live on instant noodles. I would walk to class in the snow, but I would never, ever give them the power to look at me and tell me I wasn't worth it. I would never ask again. College didn't just split our lives. It ran a high-voltage fence between them. Sophia got the bright sunny dorm room on campus, the one with the meal plan included. My parents paid for it, of course. She decorated it with string lights and photos of her friends, and joined a sorority in the first week. I found a small, cheap room off campus, in a building that smelled like old carpet and boiled vegetables. It was a 20-minute walk to my first class, and the pipes groaned every time the heat turned on, which wasn't often. Our financial worlds were entirely different. Sophia called home when she needed money for books, or for sorority dues, or for a weekend trip. The money just appeared in her account. I went to the college library, not just to study. I got a job there. My support came from the night shift. When other students were at parties, I was shelving books in the economics aisle. When they were sleeping, I was wiping down sticky tables in the 24-hour study area, my hands cracked from cleaning chemicals, my eyes burning from staring at spreadsheets for my 8 a.m. class. I'd pass Sophia on the main campus green sometimes. She'd be in the middle of a big group, laughing, sunlight catching her hair, looking exactly like the kind of carefree college student you see in brochures. She'd wave, a bright, easy gesture. One afternoon, she stopped me on my way to work. I was carrying my backpack, my library uniform stuffed in a tote bag. She tilted her head, her expression a perfect blend of pity and confusion. Amelia, you look exhausted, she said, loud enough for her friends to hear. I just nodded. Long day. You should really learn to manage your time better, she advised, like she was offering some profound wisdom. Instead of running around everywhere, you're going to burn out. Manage my time better. I looked at her clean, fashionable clothes, at her unlined face relaxed from a full night's sleep. How do you manage your time when you need 30 hours in a day just to tread water? How do you manage not having money? I just smiled. A tight, thin smile that didn't reach my eyes. Maybe you're right, I said. I kept walking, pretending her words didn't sting, pretending I wasn't marching off to a 6-hour shift while she was going for coffee. What she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that every hour I worked, every textbook I read until 3 a.m., every single sacrifice, wasn't just about survival. It was building something. It was a fortress, brick by painstaking brick. I kept my head down. I managed. For 2 years, I ran on caffeine and spite, and the quiet pride of knowing I was doing it myself. I was exhausted, but I was passing my classes, and I was paying my bills. Then, junior year, the university announced a sudden 6% tuition hike. It wasn't a huge amount, but it was just enough to tip me over. I did the math a dozen times. I sold back textbooks. I cut my food budget down to nothing. It didn't matter. I was a few $100s short of the deadline. I stared at the ceiling of my cold room, the red past due notification glowing on my laptop screen. And that is when I broke my one single promise to myself. I thought, it's not a handout, it's a loan. I'll pay them back with my first paycheck after graduation. It's just a loan. My hands were shaking. I felt sick. I felt like a failure for even asking. I picked up the phone. And that's when I made the call. That's when I asked my mother for help. And that's when she told me, Amelia, we already paid for Sophia. She deserved it, but you didn't. After the line went dead, I didn't cry. I didn't throw the phone. I didn't scream. I just stood there in my cold little room, the silence ringing in my ears, and that one sentence echoed over and over. She deserved it. But you didn't. Fine. A strange, cold calm washed over me. It was the clarity of absolute zero. I wasn't waiting for their approval anymore. I wasn't hoping they would suddenly see me. I was done. I walked to the library. My shift didn't start for hours, but I went anyway. The main doors were still locked, the sky just a dark, bruised purple before dawn. I sat on the cold concrete steps, pulled out my notebook, and in the dim glow of a campus streetlight, I made a new plan. I was done just surviving. I was going to win. I mapped out everything. Every single scholarship the university offered, every national grant for accounting students, every internship, paid or unpaid, that offered experience. Any door I could knock on, I wrote it down. My routine, which was already brutal, became something else. I started showing up to the 24-hour study lounge before sunrise. I wasn't just studying anymore. I was hunting. I'd sit on the floor by the humming vending machine, my financial analysis textbooks spread out, reading by the blue light of my phone's flashlight to save battery. Exhaustion wasn't an obstacle. It was just the rhythm of my life. Study, work, research, repeat. I stopped feeling tired. I just felt focused. That's when I met Professor Davies. He taught International Financial Reporting Standards. It was a class famous for being a GPA killer. It was dense, dry, and brutally complex. Half the class dropped it after the first midterm. I loved it. It was a system of rules. It was logical. The numbers had to balance, or the whole thing fell apart. I stayed. I sat in the front row. I did all the optional reading. One afternoon, I was packing my bag after class, my mind already on my library shift. Amelia. I looked up. Professor Davies was standing by his desk, looking at me. You actually seem to understand this stuff, he said. He had a dry, quiet way of speaking. You don't just memorize the rules, you see the system behind them. I felt my face get hot. I read a lot, sir. He almost smiled. I'm looking for a research assistant, someone organized, dependable, someone who can actually build a spreadsheet without it falling apart. Interested? My first instinct was to say no. When would I sleep? I already worked 20 hours a week at the library. But something inside me, the part of me that was so tired of being invisible, the part of me that was still sitting on those cold steps, said, yes, absolutely. It changed everything. This wasn't shelving books. This wasn't wiping up spilled coffee. He treated me like a colleague. I wasn't just grading quizzes. I was helping him build complex financial models for his research. I was cross-referencing international tax law. I even found an error in one of his published papers. I pointed it out, terrified he'd be angry. He just looked at it, nodded, and said, "Good, fix it." One late evening, we were the last two in the office, the hallway outside silent. He was packing his briefcase. He looked over his glasses at me. "You've got discipline, Amelia," he said out of the blue. "Real discipline. Most people talk a good game, but they don't have it. Keep going, it'll pay off." I just nodded, unable to speak. My parents called me strong so they could ignore me. Professor Davies saw my discipline, and he respected it. It was the first time in my life someone had seen the work, not just the struggle. He didn't see Sophia's sister. He saw me. I was in the library, on my break, quickly eating a granola bar and checking my school email. Junk, class cancellation, junk, and then a weird one. The subject line just read, Benjamin Ford National Scholarship. I almost deleted it. It looked like spam, one of those fake congratulations, you've won, scams. But the sender's address was official. My finger hovered over the delete button. Curiosity won. I clicked it. My eyes scanned the first line. Dear Miss Amelia, we are pleased to invite you to formally apply for the 2024 Benjamin Ford National Scholarship. Your professor's preliminary nomination impressed our committee. My heart didn't just stop. It felt like it seized. Your professor's preliminary nomination. Professor Davies. He hadn't said a word. He hadn't asked me. He hadn't warned me. He had just taken my work, the spreadsheets, the models, the research I'd done for him, and sent it to one of the biggest accounting scholarships in the country. He just did it. I stared at the screen, at the official logo at the top of the email. My hands started to tremble. It was so bad I had to put them in my lap. And then, a sound came out of me. It was a laugh. It was a quiet, shaky, ridiculous-sounding laugh, right there in the silent study hall. After all the years of trying to be seen, of screaming for help in silence, someone had finally seen me. Someone had seen my work and thought it was good enough to bet on, without me even asking. I didn't tell my parents. And I definitely didn't tell Sophia. The old me, the younger me, would have called them immediately, desperate for their approval, needing them to be proud. But I had learned my lesson. I'd learned that my good news was safest when I kept it in silence. Their validation was a trap. This was mine. My life became a pressure cooker. I still worked my library shift. I still worked as Davies's RA. And every single night, from midnight until 3 a.m., I worked on that application. It wasn't just a form, it was a 5,000-word essay on financial ethics. It was a detailed projection of macroeconomic trends. It was my entire academic life, distilled onto paper. Professor Davies reviewed every single line. "This argument is weak," he'd write in the margin. "Sharpen it. Your data is sound, but your conclusion is lazy. Do it again." He was relentless. He wouldn't let me be mediocre. One night, I was so tired I couldn't see the screen. The words were just blurring. All I could hear was my mother's voice, that cold, practical tone. "She deserved it. You didn't." I sat up straight. My exhaustion vanished, replaced by a cold, sharp energy. I typed until the sun came up. 3 months later, a thick envelope arrived. Not an email. A real, heavy stock envelope with my name typed on it. I sat on my bed. I didn't tear it open. I opened it carefully, with a kitchen knife. My hands were perfectly steady. I pulled out the letter. "Congratulations. After a rigorous review of over 2,000 applicants, we are honored to name you one of this year's 5 national recipients." I read the words. I read them again. I whispered it out loud, just to the empty room. I got it. I'd done it. No loans, no handouts, no shortcuts. I called home later that day. I don't even know why. maybe just to see. Mom, I said, my voice even. I just wanted to let you know. I was selected for the Benjamin Ford National Scholarship. It's kind of a big deal. There was a pause, then her voice, lukewarm. Oh, that's good, dear. That's very nice. Listen, you'll never guess Sophia just got invited to her professor's garden party. He never invites students. She's so excited she's trying to find a dress. A garden party. I bit the inside of my cheek. Wow, that's great, Mom. We're both just doing great then. When the call ended, I realized something new. I didn't feel small. I wasn't angry. I was just finished. I had spent my entire life trying to win a race against someone who didn't even know we were competing, for a prize I didn't even want anymore. Their validation just didn't matter. I took the letter, the one on the heavy, expensive paper, and I hung it on the wall above my desk. Not to gloat, to remind myself what silence can build. The awards ceremony was on a Friday morning in early May. The kind of day that feels bright and false, all soft breezes and perfect blue sky, pretending nothing can go wrong. The hall was enormous, draped in blue and gold banners. The air was thick with the low, polite hum of conversation and the smell of coffee and hotel carpet. I found my seat in the front row with the other recipients. My hands were folded in my lap, my shoes pinching. I hadn't told them what kind of award this was. I just said it was a little thing at the university. Part of me wanted to see how they'd react. Part of me, the small, stupid part, still hoped for a flash of real pride. The doors opened for the guests. I saw them walk in. My mother Janet wearing her good pearl earrings and a strained smile. My father looking hesitant, scanning the crowd as if he was in the wrong place. And right beside them, Sophia. She had her perfect hair, her perfect dress, and she was holding a digital camera, ready to capture someone else's triumph. We exchanged a small, awkward wave across the room. I smiled politely and turned back to the stage. The ceremony began. The dean spoke about excellence and dedication, words that floated through the air like confetti, pretty, but empty. My heart was a drum against my ribs. Thump, thump, thump. Then, the host stepped up to the podium. Our next recipient, his voice boomed, amplified by the speakers, is a profound example of resilience, discipline, and true independence. My breath caught. Without any financial support from her family, she has worked multiple nights and weekends jobs as a librarian and cleaner to fund her entire education, all while maintaining top academic honors. The silence in the room was absolute. I saw my mother's smile freeze on her face. It just froze. My father blinked, his head tilting in confusion. Beside them, Sophia's mouth parted slightly, her hands, holding the camera, lowered to her lap, forgotten. The host continued. Her professors describe her as a force of quiet determination. Please join me in welcoming Amelia. The hall erupted in applause. For a second, I couldn't move. The words, without financial support from her family, echoed, slicing through the polite applause like glass. They weren't just honoring me. They were revealing them. I stood up. I walked toward the stage. My cheap heels clicked on the polished wooden floor. Click, click, click. Each step was a punctuation mark. Each click was a word I'd never screamed. I told you so. I reached the stage. The dean, a man I'd only seen from a distance, shook my hand firmly. He smiled, a real smile, and leaned in. Congratulations, Amelia, he said, loud enough for me to hear over the applause. You've earned this. I met his eyes. And I said the two truest words of my life. I know. After, they cornered me by the refreshment table. My mother was first. Amelia, honey, she started. Her voice was high, brittle. The smile was back, but it was cracking. We had no idea it was this big. I looked at her, at the pearl earrings, at the panic in her eyes. The old rage I expected to feel just wasn't there. I just felt empty. I know, I said, my voice as calm as hers was strained. You wouldn't have come otherwise. Her smile faltered. Don't say that It's true, I said. My dad cleared his throat, his eyes darting away. We just We always thought you were so capable, Amelia. We didn't want to hold you back. By ignoring me? I asked. It was a real question. By pretending that strength means I don't need love or support? He didn't answer. He just looked at his shoes. I turned to Sophia. She was staring at the award in my hand, the heavy glass plaque. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Sophia? She looked down, whispering. I didn't know, Amelia. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to see it. There it was. The truth. The final, pathetic truth. It wasn't that they couldn't see my struggle. It was that they chose not to. I took a breath. You don't have to apologize. I don't need that anymore. I just wanted you to know. I made it. Without you. My mother reached out, as if to touch my arm. I stepped back. Just then, a man in a sharp suit approached, cutting through the family tension like a blade. Miss Amelia? He asked, ignoring them completely. I'm from Ford and Levine Accounting. We're the sponsors of the award. We'd be very interested in meeting with you. I smiled. A real smile, this time, of course. I turned, leaving my family standing there silent, small, and shrinking, and walked toward my future. The meeting with Ford and Levine was a blur. They didn't ask about my family, or my sister, or why I looked so tired. They asked about my research. They asked about international reporting standards. They talked about auditing ethics, and for the first time, I wasn't a student or a waitress or a library cleaner. I was just a professional. I was a colleague. The next morning, I woke up in my tiny off-campus room to the glow of my laptop. An email. Subject: Offer of employment. Junior auditor. Ford and Levine, New York. It wasn't just a job. It was the job. The one sponsored by the scholarship. The one in New York. The one that proved, on paper, in a salary figure, that I was worth something. I didn't hesitate. My finger hit the accept button so hard the key clicked. A few hours later, my phone buzzed. A text from my mother, Janet. We're all so proud, Amelia. Come home this weekend. We'll have a real celebration, just for you, okay? The okay at the end, not a question, a command. I stared at the message. A real celebration. Now. Now that there were plaques and men in suits. Now that my success was something they could hang on their wall, something they could show off to their friends. Now that I was Amelia, the New York auditor, instead of Amelia, the difficult one. I started to type. A long, angry message. A message that listed every spray-painted bike, every ignored scrape, every single hour I'd worked while Sophia went to parties. I told them how they'd failed me, how they'd broken me. My thumbs hovered over the send button. And then, I deleted it. All of it. Why? Because it was a waste of energy. It was a waste of my energy. They didn't deserve my anger. They didn't deserve my words. They didn't deserve me. I typed one simple sentence. Maybe another time. I've got packing to do. I hit send. I spent the next 2 weeks selling the few cheap things I owned. I canceled my lease. I packed my entire life into 2 suitcases. Before I left for the train station, I did one last thing. I took a plain 9x12 manila envelope. Inside, I placed a clean, crisp copy of my award letter, the one that named me a national recipient. The one that mentioned, in black and white, my independence. I didn't write a note. I didn't sign it. I just sealed it, addressed it to my parents, and dropped it in a public mailbox on the corner. It wasn't an olive branch. It wasn't a cry for help. It was a receipt. It was proof of payment. The proof that my account with them was settled. The proof that I was done. The train pulled out of the station right on time. I had a window seat. I watched the city I had struggled in for 4 years shrink behind me. The ugly campus buildings, the library, where I'd spent more time than my own room. The streets I'd walked, exhausted and freezing, at 3 in the morning. I watched it all get smaller and smaller until it was just a line on the horizon. With every click-clack of the wheels on the track, I felt lighter. It felt like oxygen was flooding my lungs for the first time in my life. And I realized, with a sudden, sharp clarity, I wasn't running from them anymore. I was running toward myself. My first night in New York. My apartment was a tiny shoebox on the 14th floor, but it was mine, and it had a tiny balcony. I stood out there, the air different, smelling like city rain and traffic. I looked down. The city lights flickered below me, a million tiny, anonymous, beautiful affirmations. None of them knew me. None of them cared who my sister was. I wasn't Sophia's twin. I was just me. I thought about my mother's voice, that cold, practical judgment from so long ago. She deserved it, but you didn't. I looked out at the skyline, at the endless river of car lights, at a whole new world waiting for me. And for the first time, I smiled. A real smile. Maybe she was right. I hadn't deserved their help. I hadn't deserved their shortcuts, their conditional approval, or their poison. I'd earned this. I earned this city. I earned this job. I earned this quiet moment on this balcony. I earned it all by myself. Sometimes, revenge isn't a loud explosion. It's not a confrontation. It's just walking away, building your own life, and never, ever looking back. If you've ever had to prove your worth to the very people who were supposed to see it first, share your story in the comments below. We see you. And don't forget to subscribe.